Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It's morning coffee. It's Monday. Grumpy is in full effect. The coffee is here. I am here with Mateusz, Mr. Dingus himself, with his coffee.
It's warm
It is
today.
warm, really. It looks cold
It's
from here. I'll be honest.
just brewed it. Just brewed it.
Just
Good morning.
freshly brewed. Happy freaking Monday to everybody. Al Nasir, as always. Good morning, gentlemen. So a bunch to get to. Let's get this out of the way real quick. Couple of announcements. This is still going on. All you gotta do is subscribe. Damn it, Sparky, stay in one location. Now he's important. I swear, man. We wish we could all be Sparky, right? Just hang around. Drinking this morning coffee in different locations every week must be nice.
Oh, I'm in Puerto Vallarta. Oh, it's only like
Getting ready
84
for your,
degrees right
wedding.
now. It's terrible.
So all you gotta do is head over to the American Scouser on YouTube, subscribe. It's free, and you're automatically entered. So that's all you have to do. Tell a friend who tells another friend. We create the pyramid scheme, and we move on. A couple of other things in terms of scheduling announcements. After this Wednesday's morning show, we'll be taking a mini break. I'll be out of town as well. So we'll be on break till the 19th. And God knows where Sparky will be by then anyway. So when we come back, we'll see Sparky over there. So a couple of headlines to get to. We might be joined by a third later on today too. So we'll see how that goes. But let's get to the high headlines. Sparky says then he'll be in UK. I mean, seriously, must be nice. Thursday is here. Was good morning, gentlemen. So okay, let's get to some headlines over here. Let's start with the good stuff, right? We get here we go. I knew that there was stuff going on, but honestly, I missed this yesterday. Medical test in 24 to 48 hours. It's done, which is weird. What he says it's done, like he knows it's solid, but then he doesn't know how much is way less. That's something that, depends on who is saying this, right? Like way less than, like if you bought something that you didn't want your spouse originally purchasing, maybe you would like, oh, it's way less than 60. It was like 58 or something. Or is it really like way less than 60, or it's actually like 40 or something like that? What do you say? I mean, we are definitely in the officially real deal zone.
Yeah, we are. And it's exciting because of the price tag, it makes it even more exciting. Because on the one hand, he could become a mainstay in the midfield and absolutely do so well here. On the flip side, he could sit on the bench and not really do much, but he still would cost less than Naby Keita. So there's really like the upside so much that there really is no downside there. We're kind of replacing Keita with McAllister. So if he does really well, that's great. If he doesn't, it's like, okay, well, we kind of spent a little bit less than what we did on Naby. I think to Serzi's point about the 45 million, from what I've seen, and obviously we don't know anything until everything's done, but there's a rumor floating around that the release clause to a non-Champions League team was less than the other release clause. So Europa League is what was able to net us McAllister for much less than the 70 that we were talking about like just a couple weeks ago. We were talking about 70, 80 million, I think, at some point, right? And then now we're under 50. And last I saw, it was 38 million was the number. And if it's for 38 million, that's going to be an absolute bargain.
Dude, that's a crazy thing to put on a contract, though, isn't it? They're like, if you're going to go to the Leicester Champions League, you know what? You do it, man. They're like, I don't understand that. Meanwhile, Newcastle's like, damn it, why did we make it to the Champions League? But, well, not Newcastle. They got money to throw around. So they would have just spent the 70 anyway. But, I mean, yeah, if it is at that value, I never did that Keita comparison. I think that's a good one, actually. And it kind of like is a good way to look at it, because I think the fact that you can get him for so much, the biggest thing for me is it leaves still so much money for other players. And we talked about, how many players we need. I mean, initially, if it was, I kind of wanted to get him anyway, but if it was going to be for 60, 70, I was going to be like, I don't know, because, is this as marquee of a signing as we want? it's definitely a player that I did want, but getting him for like 40, even like the 45 that Sorzi was saying earlier, I think that is a good deal.
38.
38, Matoshi says. You heard, here you go.
Here we go. 38 million. that's the Dingus, the Dingus official
Dingus
stamp.
Guarantee. Oh, here we go. Let's bring Callie over here. Callie, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, sorry for being late. Just typical Miami traffic, interfering with things, but I'm here. Very happy to be here.
We don't know what traffic is. We're in Chicago over here with Mateo. We don't know what is that. You don't even get in traffic. It's out there. So yeah, we were talking about McAllister, and Mr. Dingus over here, Mateo says it's going to be 38. The numbers are floating around. I mean, regardless, if it's less than 60, it sounds like an excellent deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing the initial value around 70 or so initially. But now I'm seeing, I think even Paul Joyce recently, I saw put out a tweet that it could be as low as about 35. And man, the lower we can get it, the better. Because I know we're a club, especially that sometimes likes to pinch pennies a bit. So huge. I'll take it, especially someone of that caliber, that's playing some of his best football right now. I'll take it.
I think that's a good point. Like, he's playing his best football and he's doing it in the Premier League. I think that means the most to me out of like the entire scenario is the fact that he's doing it in the Premier League. So, I mean, some of these other names that are thrown around, like Thuram and Kone and stuff like that. A, I do not know much about them because I do not follow their leagues that closely. B, you always kind of doubt what the transition is going to be when they come to the Premier League. But going back to those, Sorzi says the best part of it was the Manchester United wanted him, but he chose us above going to them. Despite this, which is odd, really. I mean, if that is true, just because I think he could walk into their midfield as well, especially like knowing Casemiro's age and everything like that. And obviously they're in Champions League, and they're not as much of a shithole disaster as they were when Ronaldo was there and stuff like that in terms of chaos. I don't know how many games they are away from a chaos, though. I mean, you could look at United and say, if they start the next season with 2 draws, do you go back to that drama and all the stuff behind the scenes? Whereas there's a bit more stability involved in some of the other Champions League clubs like City. I mean, if City starts with put all those teams together, if they start with 2 draws, probably United is the one that's showing the most collapse out of the Champions League qualified teams, because Arteta has built himself a reputation for now. You would think, the fans would back him regardless. Newcastle the same way, obviously Pep. So
City would lose the first 2 games and people would still say they're going to win the title. So it doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Sad but true. So out of the other names, and we kind of talked about where they go in this dial over here, but anyone that especially excites you, Mateusz, and you say, I hope it's in the very likely part of things?
I think Mickey Van de Ven, just for the song. Because that's how I really rate my footballers that play for the club that I love, is how well could we turn their name into a good song that's remembered forever,
Yeah, that's what Ozan Kabak thought, and then
okay. Yeah, that one kind of stung a bit, but every once in a while it has to kind of fall flat a bit. But I also find it interesting to have him in the conversation, because I think this was going back to the Friday morning show with you and Alex, and you guys were talking about him, and the fact that he offers a different sort of cover on that left side, being a bigger left-footed center back. You could do like a Van de Ven, Van Dijk, Konate situation where you have Trent that's being pushed up and into the midfield when he plays that inverted right back role. So I think that offers a lot of flexibility for how you set up defensively, and that's one of the signs that I see of them moving towards this new style, this new formation, is having that sort of cover. Because I think Bickler said this a month or so ago, maybe it was on the Monday night show, that this new formation is limiting Robertson a lot and limiting that left side a lot. So why not move towards a defender who is much better at defending than he is going forward, but able to cover that left side just as well if he could, and this is all just guesstimating that he can do all that, but I would want a nice big left-footed defender that could cover that side. And I think that would be for the price that they're looking at. I think it would be pretty nice.
So Alan says this is where we need the drum effects. I'll have to add this to our StreamYard. So no buses on defense, but just 2 vans. But honestly, I think that will be interesting, and I think it would help Van Dijk being the center one out of those 2 positions. Is less running or speed tracking of a winger as opposed to the guy on the left and the guy on the right. But having said that, I think, I'm going to ask the same question to you, Callie, in terms of, who excites you the most. The tricky part is, and we did this last summer too, when we saw, Elliott and Carvalho, and we were trying to come up with a formation where, it's going to be 4-2-3-1 then and stuff. And it never happened. We do have a full summer now with no World Cup, so it's a bit easier for someone like Klopp to change the formation and stuff. So it's kind of hard to know who to wish for without knowing the formation. But out of all the names you see recently, who excites you the most, or who do you know the most that you would say, yep, that's a good fit?
It's tough because, especially I think before I answer, I think it's important to kind of look at how some roles change within the team, especially towards the latter end of the season, like Trenton playing more centrally and things like that. Does that kind of highlight the plans for him next year? So that being said, do we move to a 4-2-3-1, especially with the outpouring of forwards that we have? I think kind of like Mateo said, we do need to address that back line a little bit. I think we're, especially depth on the wings, and if we're going to use Trent a little more centrally, I think that's something we need to address. But obviously the glaring issues in midfield, right? We're kind of aging out. It's definitely in the need of a refresh. So 2 guys that I've seen that I'm particularly excited about. They're both Gladbach guys. So and the one probably I've seen more strongly connected to us is Manu Kone. Young midfielder. I think he wouldn't be a starting guy, but playing behind, offering depth, young depth that can run. He can kind of go box to box. Definitely plays more defensively, but a young guy with some pace and plays the game pretty well. Played a ton of minutes for Gladbach this year. He's one that I really like. And then the other one from Gladbach is Florian Neuhaus. And I think both of them, especially considering their age plus their values, they're both guys that are probably going to be under 15 million. Yeah. So I think those are 2 options that, that I think are worth looking at. Now, obviously there's, we've seen it lately in the Premier League. It's kind of that Bundesliga tax that someone will perform one way in the Bundesliga and then not necessarily live up to those expectations in the Premier League. But, with a coach like Klopp, especially I think with the German connections, I think we can kind of see him get the most out of guys like that.
Yeah, the Neuhaus. I'll throw that my German thing in there, see if it works. Neuhaus over there. That his name was thrown around a lot in the past, and I guess my fear is whenever we throw around the name a lot in the past and it doesn't happen, we rarely go back to it. But that's a player that I probably seen more of because the rumors were there, so we were kind of watching him at the time to see if it would fit. Do you think that's a possibility? Is that a name that's, let's go over here, Mateusz, put the dial up for you, and you kind of tell us how it is, where you put a rumor like that, or one of those 2, because you got to figure Gladbach is not going to get rid of both anyway.
Yeah, they're probably not going to part with both. I would say the Neuhaus one would be closer to in the doubt it to the not bloody likely, even though I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy having him as a player. I just think there's not much meat there. I would also like to say, what the hell is this, Alan? I've been on here for a month and I haven't gotten a single song. Within 10 minutes, he's got his own song.
Hey, and you know what that means? He's sticking around based on your theory.
This is actually so the reason why Timothy wanted to make this, wanted to bring Callie in is because this is my last show ever, you guys. So
yeah, we're transitioning.
I'll see you some other time. But I'll put the Manu Kone in the kind of right where that dial is. I know you like to use that a lot, Timothy, is not really give an answer and just say it's just right where that dial is.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
So right where that could happen, but slightly closer to doubt it. But I think it would be great price depending on on what the price ends up being. But I think there's good value there. And again, it's one of those things where you offer. The whole thing comes back to is, yes, depth is great, but how important is depth to a manager like Klopp, and will he actually use the depth? Because we've seen in years past, he is a manager of few players. He likes having his 14, 15 guys, and that's it. He's not like Pep in the sense that he can get a squad of 22 and be able to rotate those guys pretty easily throughout the season. And I think if he is able to offer that rotation more, then I would enjoy it even more. The problem is that if he doesn't offer that rotation, then it just becomes more of a waste in a way. I think the Europa League is one thing that we can really look toward, hopefully, that allows us to see more of that rotation, because the competition isn't as strong as Champions League, so there's less need to go with your strongest 11 every single group stage game. And then from there, you can kind of decide what you want to do. But I think at least at that point, it gives you more flexibility. And maybe this is the year we see a different Klopp from a rotation point of view.
That's a good question, actually. I was going to ask that to Callie. You kind of started it. First of all, the joke is on you, because I would have put this on more of to the right, to the doubted side. I almost feel like the Neuhaus one, especially, because if a player is mentioned and we're kind of tied and it doesn't happen, it's usually there's a reason. We either said, nah, we'll pass probably, and we rarely go back into it. So Sparky says we don't need any more bench midfielders. I would actually say we do need more bench midfielders, but depends on what you define as bench. You need rotation, and that's a good point that you brought up, Matush. Does the Europa, compared to the Champions League concept, almost force Klopp now, Callie, to have a deeper bench, knowing it's going to be a Thursday, Sunday kind of an ordeal, so that he doesn't get a chance to complain about a Saturday morning game after like a Wednesday game or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the wrench in the equation with the Europa League is now it is that Thursday, Saturday, Thursday, Sunday type of schedule, and that it's gonna. I mean, I know Klopp likes to keep a really tight squad, but it's gonna force him to rotate, especially like we're in the back line, we're seeing guys, like Matip has had a hard time staying healthy. Verge, he's not the Verge from 2018, 2019, but he's still a very good center back in the league. But, clearly after the knee surgery, he's lost a step. As much as we want to keep those guys on the field, we need to do something about it. And that's why kind of, especially with our midfield situation, the way Klopp operates, the 4-2-3-1 kind of makes sense, because now you just have that double pivot for midfielders. And then, we have so many forwards that, I don't think that's a position that we really need to address right now. So it's going to force it. We have that rotation with our forwards. And he's just going to have to rotate guys with the way the schedule is. You can't have guys playing, 3 nights apart for X amount of time, because it's just going to, it's going to kill us.
And the irony of that is he always complains about feeling bad for people who are really performing in practice, but he can't get them all in because you can only field 11 players and stuff. And then, well, here's a chance. Get them out there. Cosgrove says we need midfield. You need midfielders. It's up to the players themselves to prove to the manager who are the starters or not. And I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then he gives you the Polish prince repping the Balotelli. By the way, matte finish is what Alan could come up with. But not to mention, by the way, you are Mr. Dingus himself, the CEO of Dingus FC. So you got a lot going for you, buddy. Don't sell yourself short. Man, there's a lot of Hendo and Elliott hate over here. Saidu's one, Sparky's another. Hendo, Elliott, Jones starting, but rather super substitute. And at least Saidu is bringing him off the bench. Sparky was like, Henderson Elliott's already sitting down. But I feel like, Henderson would be a great player now. And I realize, he's not the Henderson we had in the title run and stuff like that. But he'd be a great player right now where you're watching the game, you're like, man, midfield is getting tired. That's when you bring in Hendo the last 20 minutes, the last 25 minutes with his energy to get everybody else and, bark around to everybody else around him to increase everybody around him another 10-15% too, and bring his energy to close out games. I think that's where he can, and that's what Cosgrove says Henderson takes the million role moving forward, so can contribute a lot. And I think maybe not as a starter, as a bench. Go ahead, Callie.
No, I was gonna say that was gonna be my point exactly. Like I think Hendo slots beautifully, kind of into that Millie role that he can be that leadership from the bench. He's the guy that can come in, 65th, 70th minute or something like that, and take over for a tired midfielder and provide that leadership and that energy we need. So, yeah, I think David was spot on with that.
I think watching the Milner tribute video, you could really tell of all people Henderson appreciated the most in terms of helping him being a captain by being the bad cop in there as the captain. So I think that's really for Milner, that's probably the trickiest issue is filling in that role, or filling in Hendo's role in that sense or whatever.
Look how weird that looks.
It doesn't look right.
Doesn't that look weird?
Yeah, that looks like a bad Photoshop.
I mean, obviously it's Photoshop.
It is a bad Photoshop.
Obviously.
But no, I mean, even when it happens, it's going to look like a bad Photoshop. I mean, even if it's the real photo, it's just not going to look right. At least it's closer to Leeds colors and stuff like that. Sider says, yeah, Henderson 75th till the end. And I think that's perfect. And, the good thing about Henderson is he will be more than okay with that if it's good for the team. He's not a guy who's going to be like, I'm the captain, I should be out there kind of a player. He's selfless in that sense, so that helps. So
and you need those kinds of players in the locker room. You need the Hendersons. You need the Milners. You need those guys that really, really can shape that locker room the way that it needs to be. Sometimes players just need to hear it, and those are the kinds of guys that will give it to them.
Cosgrove says, I think Milner probably ran to Brighton just truck, and they're like, hey, while you're here, just sign up. But
handed his keys to McAllister, like, here you go.
Henderson, Milner. I mean, when we talked earlier about, teams closer to a collapse if they started the season with 2 draws and stuff like that, I think that's what makes the difference is the coach's stability, and then the locker room stability is where it goes to, because everybody's happy, everybody's high-fiving and stuff when you win. Shit starts going down when you get a couple of poor results. Who's going to hold the locker room together? Sometimes it's the captains or the players in there, and sometimes it's the manager that's in there. So from there, let's go to a moron. I didn't even bring the picture on, but honestly, I did not even watch the final because by the time I was awake enough to turn it on, it was already 1-0. The game pretty much started 1-0. So I was like, you know what? I guess I'm not watching soccer this weekend. I just enjoyed the Fenerbahce misery instead on Sunday. So couple of questions with this, and this is what my brother will be. I'm sure anybody who follows the show knows is a United fan. So we were talking about them with this, and I actually sent it to him during the game, and then we talked about it a lot yesterday on our podcast and after the podcast, like while we were off the air. Here's my biggest question, and I think this is the biggest social experiment to me. So this guy's a moron, but somehow he got another moron to do the jersey for you. So my brother and I speculated you could have this done in China or some shit like that, and they would have no idea and they would do it for you. Or it could be an automated system where you just enter the name and stuff like that, and they just spit it out and print it. Like if you go to Custom Ink or something like that, there's a disclaimer that says you're responsible for the shit you're printing. So whatever you put on there, it's on you. We're just printing what you want kind of deal. So let's get past to somebody actually making this shirt and stuff like that. What do you guys think? Let's start with Dimitrish. This was my social experiment. What do you think the reaction was in the stadium? Because that would tell the state of humanity to me, is how many people saw this guy and said, dude, that's fucking wrong? And how many people saw the thing and said, that's a funny shirt, and just fucking chuckled or something? Give me a ratio of what you think humanity is at right now. You're the worst person to ask. It's going to be like 95-5, but go ahead.
Which way?
But 95 is going to be bad, man. Knowing you, 95 is going to be bad.
You think I have no faith in the world? I wanted to.
When you go to social media, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, because I don't want to look at social media.
Yeah,
we know a lot of people on social media act like they care for a cause, and it's all fake. It's for other people to look like they care for a cause. So I'm taking the social media out of the equation. These are just people, like he's over there buying something to eat or something. He's there. That's why I think the greater social experiment would have been to see the reaction around them in the stadium, in the immediate vicinity.
Yeah, I think so. The context of where he is, I think, plays into what the reactions would be like. I think given that it was a cup final and it was 2 Manchester clubs, I feel like more people would have chuckled than the people that would have been like, hey, dude, that's fucking wrong. What the fuck? Whereas if it was, let's say, in a random shopping center and he was just eating food, I think then you look at it and go, majority of people look at that and go, that's fucked up, man. Like, but because the situation of the match allowed him the space to feel like he wanted to wear that in that moment, I think then more people would have looked at it and just gone, huh, yeah, funny, moving on kind of thing. It's like back to the conversation we talked about chanting about the racist chants, about being around a bunch of people, and will the people join in or will the people won't join in? And it's tough because you could see one or the other. And I think it's like, it's tough because I would hope that it was 95% like, hey, fucking take this off, go buy something else. But the reality is it probably was more so of, oh, hey, looked at the shirt and then just kept walking. No one would have said anything to him. I think people who would have thought it would be funny would say something to him. The people who didn't think it'd be funny, they'd say, what a fucking idiot, and not say anything to him. I think that's where I would assume is what happened.
So what are the percentage? Shoot me a percentage.
I'll just go 50-50.
Really? Mateusz 50-50? Oh, man, I like it. This whole marriage thing is making you soft. Kelly, let's go with you. What do you think?
Well, I think it has to be a little more than 50-50 just because the guy ended up getting arrested. So, I mean, someone had to be, or enough people had to be upset that cops were called. He was escorted out of the stadium and arrested. Now, well, I mean, it's fucked up, right? Like, there's no other way to put it. Now, as far as printing, like, I know you can just buy the letters individually. So who's to say that he didn't just do it himself? But because I can't imagine even United would get that order online and be like, yeah, we're gonna print this. But like, you wouldn't wear that to a Liverpool match, right? Like if it's the Liverpool United derby, he's not wearing that. He thought it'd be funny. He thought, like, he's just an idiot. But I have to imagine that enough people were upset that cops were called and he was arrested, and it made the rounds on social media really quick. And I even saw United fans on Twitter. I know Twitter can be a little monolithic in terms of reactions that we get, but they're calling him an idiot, like he's not one of us. Like, it's really unfortunate considering, obviously what happened. But from a more surface level perspective, I can't believe you're playing a cup final against your in-town rival, and your thought is to still try and dunk on Liverpool. Like,
yeah, and I think that goes to, because you can't wear that. You're right. I mean, when that's a good point, because Cosgrove says the same thing. Why are you thinking about Liverpool in the City game? But I think you kind of answered that initially, Callie, because you said he wouldn't be able to wear that to a Liverpool game because other City fans in that area are not going to care. Whereas,
and also, it's not going to have a visceral reaction from people who aren't associated with the Hillsborough disaster, right? So, like, a City fan sees that, and they probably just very superficially think like, "Wow, that's pretty fucked up," and just kind of keep going, because their community wasn't affected by that. Whereas, and it's weird that it comes from that they would do that. I know, like, people are just shitty people. I'm not going to group in like all United fans together, but considering the proximity of Manchester and Liverpool, like there's a lot of overlap in terms of the community like that. So kind of everybody was affected within that region. So the fact that you would do that is kind of demented. But yeah, like, again, like you mentioned, like United fans that find it funny would just kind of scoff at it or whatever. And then most people that weren't affected were like, oh, that's kind of fucked up, but they're just going to carry on about their day. But, it's just fucking stupid. It's really upsetting.
It is. Spike says he could probably wear the Old Trafford against Liverpool. Yeah, you might be able to get away with it there because, like, there's power in numbers kind of deal. But
my question, if I may, so do you think, going back to Callie's point about there being enough people to be upset for him to be arrested, now do you think that's because someone was able to take a picture of it and it made its rounds and then it got reported, or that there were people in the stadium that would report it? Because my thought would be that I think it made its rounds on the internet and then he was arrested, rather than enough people saying something within the stadium and having him arrested. Because I don't think it would have happened. It's one of those, like, there's a term for it. The car crash happens, everyone's just standing around, the bystander dilemma, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where everyone just kind of is waiting for the next person to the right or left to do something and no one ends up doing anything. So
Yeah.
until it made its rounds on the internet, I don't know if it would have ended the way that it did.
Also, the game was at Wembley, so it's a massive crowd. You know, it's you know there's a heavier police presence than it would be like a league game or anything like that. So maybe also a cop just saw it and said, "Yo, that's fucked up. Like this is actual hate speech. Like we're gonna arrest you for this."
But you would think he
So-
would not be able to get in and like buy like a Coke or beer or whatever in there.
But they can't see the back of his shirt, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
he's
I
looking
guess
like
that's-
towards it, like and also like if I'm assuming if you're in that setting, you're probably talking to your friends. You're not like looking for at the back of someone's shirt. Again, it just took one moment for one person to take a picture and put it on the internet for everything to kind of catch fire. But I think kind of the more social settings, and I saw the picture. It looks like he's like some sort of club access type of thing. It took. So maybe he was in a more like secluded area that he wasn't around a ton of people. But yeah, so I mean, it could have been either. We can speculate on it as much as we want. But
well, the FA statements made it sound like they had to look for him. So obviously he wasn't like he either changed or he came to the stadium with something over it and he put that over or somebody.
When he was arrested, he was wearing when he was arrested. The picture I saw where he was getting arrested, he was wearing.
Still wearing it, yeah.
But if you read the statement, they were like, we located him based on the description. I hope the description wasn't a guy wearing a Not Enough 97 jersey. And they're like, where is that 97 I'm looking for? I took that more as, they gave a description and they seeked the guy out and he was wearing something or he flipped it or something like that is at least how I read it. But yeah, when he's arrested, he's still wearing the jersey with nothing else. So maybe that was the description is the guy wearing the fucking offensive jersey. But I think you're right. I think it's the fact that it was all over the internet that probably caused it to be more of a reaction. Otherwise, it might have been some people shaking heads. And I think you're right. A lot of people would not say something. That's what we're talking about with my brother. Like a lot of people probably would not say something, walk by and say, what an asshole, and just keep going. Sparky says Liverpool fans have been talking Munich shit for years. What goes around comes around. And that's the thing. I read some let's not kid ourselves. Every fan base has assholes in it. I mean, so I like, the Liverpool fan would never do this. I mean, don't speak for like millions of people because you just look stupid.
There's assholes everywhere.
So. Yeah, when you have a large number, the ratio might slightly differ, but either way, when you have a large number, you're gonna have those assholes in there. And honestly, this only shows when we were talking to my brother that England is more civilized than Turkey, because he would not make it alive out of there. At least one piece shape in Turkey, they would beat the shit out of him. Good or bad, how you take it. But we were trying to. It's kind of hard because we were trying to speculate in terms of something that would happen. Because because Galatasaray Fenerbahçe game was on yesterday, which is as deadly as it gets in terms of like rivalries and stuff, and we were trying to think of something that somebody could say, because this is above and beyond. This is not just banter. This is almost non-human kind of banter. And we could not come up with something like that. The only example I did come up with, we were talking about the earthquake, which we did the fundraiser for, by the way, and Anfield Shop did that one day as well. So thanks again to them. Thanks again to everybody contributing to that. We'll have the final numbers soon. But anyway, if somebody said, 50,000 people were not enough to die, wish it was 60,000. And I brought up this example. I was, I've talked about it here before. I play Call of Duty and we were in a map and my name online is Turkish Stallion, kind of like in Discord. And we killed this dude. And you can have proxy chat and stuff if you're familiar with DMZ. Everybody can hear each other, even the guy who you killed, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Turkish Stallion, blah, blah, blah. And he said something like, first he was being semi-friendly. Then he said something like, he's like, didn't you guys have the earthquake? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, I wish more people died. I hope you guys have another one or something like that. And so there's basically probably 8-9 people involved in this thing at that point. And well, obviously, I started saying stuff that I can't repeat over here on live as much as we swear. I can't put that up here. But to be fair, there were other people in there, for example, Mateusz, that said, dude, that's fucked up. You don't say that kind of shit. Get the hell out of here and stuff like that. So you think in the stadium, it takes really one person? I was thinking about the example in the movie theater, for example. Somebody has their phone out or somebody's on the phone and stuff. You might not get up from your seat and go over there. But if somebody says something, you're going to be like, yeah, we're all getting disturbed over here. You think it takes one person in that stadium to get things going if it was 50-50?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think situational context is important too. I think being able to Like if I am playing a game and I can't see anyone's face, for some people, that to me is just like they're not really a person. I can say whatever I want to say because I don't see them as a real human being. All I hear is a voice, and we're just playing video games. I'm going to say whatever the hell I want to say, and that's it. Whereas if you actually have that face-to-face where you're telling someone to knock it off, that takes a little bit more, and especially depending on what it is that you're telling them to stop doing, and what they look like, like no one, you can play games online and call someone a little dick, like, and you're like, I'm not worried about it because you can't come over and beat me up. But if you go up to someone in person and they're like twice your size, you might think twice about what you're going to say because you're like, I might get punched in the face and it could hurt. Obviously this guy didn't look very big, but it doesn't mean he can't punch me in the face. So it's one of those where I think depending on where you are as situationally, but I do think going back to the bystander dilemma, if someone then does something, then the rest of the group will react if they were going to in the first place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is like a lot of people are there for a cup final, like it's the FA Cup final, so a lot of people just don't want to be bothered with it. Like, I'm not dealing with this shit. I want to watch my team play. I don't want to have to like, talk to authorities or like divert my attention away from this. It's fucked up, but I'm gonna continue doing what I want to do.
And that's the thing, Sirs. He says, and that was my brother's initial reaction when I sent it to him, is like, this idiot that's taken up too much of everyone's time. He got what he wanted, and but at the same time, because my brother's point was when we first started talking that this almost encourages other morons to do moronic things to get attention. But in some ways, that's why I'm glad that it got exposed as it did, as opposed to somebody just being in a stadium. It got onto the social media. He got arrested. I mean, if this guy is employed somewhere, that probably doesn't, reflect back on him. Hopefully. So you would think, Mateusz, let me ask you that. Other morons who see this feel almost strengthened by the attention this guy gets, or the fact that he got arrested and all that kind of stuff, it got exposed this much, would be more of a deterrent?
I don't think it will deter anyone if they were going to do something like that in the first place. I think we see the same thing in the States all the time with copycats. Like they don't care about, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And I think being able to receive this much attention even makes it more appealing for people like that. I know that he got arrested, but I don't think that's like the end of the world for someone like that, is to get arrested. Because who knows, did he sit for a couple hours and get released? Did he sit for a night? Like, whatever. I think because if someone was going to do that, this makes it more intriguing because they want to get that attention. And I'd much rather have it be like this than have it be someone who is going to be, taking a gun to a school, for example, and being a copycat that way, because there's obviously lines to this, but I don't think it necessarily deters anyone just to see that he got arrested.
That's fair. Sparky says he got arrested, but his fine would be about 100 pounds. I'm worried about how he knows the exact fine, but that's a different story. So let's talk this on our way out. So the next time we'll be back in the morning show will be the 19th. Callie, we'll start with you. It's prediction time. We don't have a game score to predict, so we'll predict this. As of the 19th, how many signings will Liverpool have made, knowing it starts on the 14th is when players, can be officially signed by a Premier League team?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to say one. I think McAllister. I think historically too, Liverpool doesn't move very fast within the transfers. They're very kind of slow and methodical. So I'm going to stick with one.
Mateusz, what is your number? 5 days. That's a lot of days. Sparky says one. It is weekend in there too, but still,
Let's go 3.
Damn, really?
By the 19th? By the 19th?
By the 19th, yeah.
That's so 2 weeks from now.
Transfer window. So you're putting 3. Okay.
Because
the
window opens on the 14th, right? So McAllister is going to be official on the 14th. And then let's see. I don't know who the other two are, but there's going to be 3 altogether.
I don't know who they are, but there'll be people in there. I was going to go 2 to 3 too, actually, because I feel like this is a year where we are really big on starting training and getting things fixed up, because it almost looks like Klopp has this, and you didn't see this in the past seasons, right? Maybe because we performed well, but he's in this mode where he's like, we got shit to do. Like, we got stuff to fix and we got shit to do. So he kind of does we got to start training early, get this implemented. So I would think he wants the guys, whoever we're gonna get, regardless of the money, what we have and stuff, get him in early.
Yeah.
Sounds like the thing he would say. So if he has two guys and one can come in early and be done and over with, I feel like he would go for that option and say, that's fine, just bring him in, because I don't want a guy trotting in here like mid-July.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I think there will be 3 early signings, because he wants to bring them. And he's always talking about having enough time. And if he wants enough time, they're going to need to bring them in as soon as possible. So I think I'm going to sit at 3. It sounds exciting, so I'll do it.
God, there's AFCON again in January? I did not even realize this. Losing Saudi, I think we should be fine there, though, right? I mean, we still need somebody who can play on the right, I guess. But
Yeah.
I think we should be fine up there. 2, including McAllister and Thuram, says, I would be totally okay with that. Or your Van over there, too. I mean, either way, I think I just want this done and over with. First of all, for our mental health over here, so we don't talk about just like the rumor mill. I don't have to use this dial 24/7 over here. But so 19th is when we'll be back as a gang. Will you be with us, Mateusz, or will you be hanging out with Sparky in Mexico somewhere for wedding festivities? Will you be with us on the 19th?
To be determined.
To be determined, yes. Because
I fly out the day after the Tuesday. So I need to make sure that I'll have the time for you, my friend.
Let me translate that to the married people out there. Basically, Mateusz is saying if Michelle lets him, he will be here Monday morning.
It has already begun.
Yeah, Michelle has been running the show for quite some time. So we will see what happens then. I know Callie is going to be with us throughout the summer. He's off of school, living the good teacher life over here. But what grade do you teach, by the way? Or what do you teach, Callie?
I teach high school world history.
Oh,
nice.
Dude,
yeah.
You got a reference guy over here now.
I went to school to be a high school history teacher. I'm not one right now, so you can see how that turned out. But I love that.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So we're expecting a ton of historical references from you that none of us will probably understand, but still, you should throw them out there just in case. But Callie, Mateusz, thanks a lot. Thanks to all those joining in today, commenting. Don't forget the giveaway. Tell a friend. Get the pyramid scheme going. And we will be back Wednesday morning with John and maybe a third. So we'll see you guys then. Take care.